Not here. Okay. So looks like we have.
Hannah, this is Will. I was having AV connection issues, but I'm here.
Great, thank you.
That was 9 by my count.
What was that?
I had 9 that you counted present.
Great, and I believe that's quorum. Is that right, Grant? Yeah. So we have 16 on the board. So we just made quorum. Yay. So good morning, everybody. It is 6 minutes after 10 a.m. and I'd like to call the November 3rd, 2021 meeting of the Clean Energy Advisory Board to order. This meeting is being conducted pursuant to the Clean Energy Advisory Board's policy on conducting meetings electronically without an in-person quorum pursuant to Chapter 1 of the 2021 Special Session 2 Acts of Assembly. The meeting is being held solely to receive presentations, updates, public comments, or conduct other forms of information gathering. And no votes will be taken and no formal recommendations will be made during this meeting. We just did the roll call vote. So moving on to just the stated purpose of this meeting and the agenda is to conduct consultations with investor-owned utilities, IOUs, in the Commonwealth of Virginia on how best to inform low-income customers of opportunities to lower electric bills through access to solar energy. The general topics we would like to address are on-site solar and net metering, power purchase agreements, referred to as PPAs, and/or solar leases, shared solar and/or multifamily shared solar, and any other incentives or LMI, low to moderate income areas. So I have a list of some questions that I would like to ask each of the utilities. What we're going to do is we're going to have ODP present first, then we'll move to APCO, and then we'll have a short break, and then we'll have Dominion. So some of the questions may be repetitive for the board members that are here for the whole meeting. Apologies for that redundancy, but I think that'll be really helpful for all of the utilities. So we'll start first with ODP. Maybe Kendrick, I can ask you to introduce your team. And do you have any presentations or materials that you would like to share with the board?
Yes, thank you. My name is Kendrick Riggs, and I'm with the law firm of Stahl Keenan Ogden, the outside regulatory counsel for Kentucky Utilities Company and Louisville Gas and Electric Company. And I did send a presentation yesterday, and Aaron graciously offered to be the presenter of that, which is fine with me. So in the meeting today as well for Old Dominion Power is Michael Horning, Manager Pricing and Tariffs, Gus Thomas, Manager Civic Affairs, Tim Melton, Manager Customer Commitment, and Lisa Keels, Manager Emerging Business Delivery. So they're all on the call with me. So I would like to take just a few minutes to kind of set the foundation, if you will, who Old Dominion Power is and what our presence is in Virginia, because that is very different than the other two investor-owned utilities. And then review with you what we're doing, and then get any input from you about what you have as to the programs that we do offer. So next slide, please. So just a word about who Old Dominion Power is and is not. That's in my experience, there is some confusion. It is a business operation. It's not a separate subsidiary of Kentucky Utilities Company. It is literally Kentucky Utilities doing business as Old Dominion Power Company in Virginia. It serves, as you can see on the slide, about 2,800 customers in 5 counties, but essentially it's Wise County. Other portions that we serve are not significant. And the total relationship of this to KU is not significant. in relation, less than 5% of our customers are here in Virginia. About 5% of our total capital is invested in Virginia. There are no generation assets in Virginia. And so to that last point, now there is the Virginia City Hybrid Energy Center that is located in Wise County. That is not owned by Old Dominion Power. That is owned by and operated by Dominion Energy. So in my experience, that has caused a lot of confusion, but that is not our generation facility. There are two business offices that we operate in Virginia. One is in Norton, the other one is in Pennington Gap to work with customers. But stepping back one more step, Kentucky Utilities and Louisville Gas and Electric Company merged in 1998, and they are operated, although two separate legal entities, they are jointly operated on a highly integrated basis. So to give you a picture of the investor-owned utility and its presence in Virginia. So next slide, please. This is a service territory map from the old from the Virginia State Corporation Commission. It's a bit dated, but I think it's generally still accurate. And you can see in the dark green where KU is located, and that's essentially Wise County. The other four counties are just kind of bits and pieces that have been served. Just a little bit of history. At one point, Kentucky Utilities did serve into that Tennessee area, into that tri-state area, but over time it's completely withdrawn due to the Tennessee Valley Authority and the so-called fence that was imposed by Congress for the service territories. So the residual kind of remains in that very far tip of Southwest Virginia. But Wise County is essentially service territory. Next slide. Just another note, the regulation is different than the other two investor-owned utilities. We are regulated under what is Chapter 10, which is the traditional form of regulation in Virginia. And we are exempt largely from the provisions of the Virginia Electric Utility Regulation Act. Just a bit of history for that, because that's important. So if you go back to when all of the legislation activities began many years ago in the 90s, when there was a push for deregulation, Kentucky Utilities did not want to be part of that and obtained the exemption from that act at that time to avoid offering deregulation and competitive services in this part of Virginia. And so as that act has been revised and revised and revised, KU has maintained its exemption from that. So that, you know, today it continues to be regulated by the State Corporation Commission, much like your other traditional utilities of water and gas. There's only the fuel adjustment factor we have as an active separate mechanism. Now, there are exceptions, and we certainly recognize those that were in passed in the last several years by the General Assembly. The multifamily shared solar, and net metering, the third-party power purchase agreement pilot program, and there is a question about the energy efficiency application or statute. We have raised that in our current rate case and have proposed a resolution to that and a process for establishing a pilot energy efficiency process that would lead to the implementation of DSM programs. So, next slide, please. ODP has a very clear-eyed view of the demographics of Wise County. This is just one data point that shows the household income. As we have said in our testimony and our filings before the State Commission, we recognize that there are poverty is pervasive in this part of Southwest Virginia. Low fixed income customers are prevalent throughout this small service territory that we have. So it is much the same once you cross the Kentucky border. You'll find many of the same demographics and socioeconomic factors that play just across the border of Kentucky where we serve as well. So it's not, it's a service territory that it's not unique to Virginia. It's common to the eastern part of Kentucky as well, where we serve. Next slide, please. So just very briefly to touch on, we do have low-income programs that you see here. Next slide, please. Go into those just a little bit more. The Winter Share is a longstanding program about customer donations where we match the donations 2 to 1. See kind of the funds that have been distributed over the last 3 years to customers in our territory to help with their utility bills. There's also, next slide, please, the Virginia Energy Assistance Program. You see there the description of that that's administered by Virginia, but ODP, works with the state in support of that. Next slide, please. There you see some statistics or figures about the number of customers that receive fuel assistance and other assistance under this program. Next slide. Yeah, thank you. The low income late payment charge is a policy that we have in our tariffs. I think it's very beneficial. You can see the policy here. It allows the residential customers to avoid a late payment charge, and this has been a successful business practice that we've had in place in our tariffs now for several years in both Virginia and Kentucky. I think that's been very beneficial. So, so we come to the renewable program. So let me be clear. The company in general believes in renewable power at the lowest reasonable cost and has for many years. It owns 2 hydro generating facilities in Kentucky that it's used for well over 60 years. It has built a 10 megawatt solar facility several years ago at the Brown generation station in Kentucky. And all of that data is posted on to the internet for evaluation. We have a solar share program in Kentucky that allows subscription to solar. And we also last year filed and finally received approval at the Kentucky Commission for a 100 megawatt purchase power movement, which at the time we believe was going to create the largest utility scale solar facility in Kentucky. So we very much believe in renewable power as long as it's the lowest reasonable cost. Now, our programs that we offer here in Virginia are net metering. The 4 that you see, I'm not going to repeat those, so that we can kind of advance the meeting. Next slide, please. So just an update on our net metering. It is a tariffed program. And there you see we have 38 net metering customers with about 424 kW of capacity to date. Next slide, please. We have a green tariff that is approved in our last rate case. Several programs that are available. And there you see the number of inquiries we've had about the RECs and the enrollment of that. Next slide, please. The multifamily shared solar program, of course, is a new program that is implemented and is published on our website. As you note, to date, we've not received any inquiries about this, but we have filed the rates for the tariff provisions for that with the State Corporation Commission. So, next slide, please. The third-party PPA pilot program does see much more traction in Virginia. And there you see what is currently shown, and you can go to the Virginia State Corporation Commission's website for this information. There are 14 projects in progress, so to speak, with about 6.2 megawatts that's been submitted. So that program, I think, is very active and continue to proceed. So I go to our last slide, please. Finally, as I mentioned earlier, there is, I think, some ambiguity as to the application of the energy efficiency statute to KU ODP, the way it's drafted. So in our current pending rate case, we have presented a position and a way to resolve that issue and ask for confirmation of that. And if approved, this will set up a process to develop a DSM program and a filing going forward. So we have used the same type of stakeholder process for many, many years in Kentucky doing DSM programs, and we use the same type of stakeholder process here in Virginia to develop and present DSM programs for the Commission's consideration, along with a mechanism to recover the cost. So that, in a nutshell, is who Old Dominion Power is, and I'm open for any questions or suggestions. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Thank you. I was just saying thank you so much, Kendrick. We really appreciate your time in being here with your whole team and your time in putting together that presentation. So thank you. I have a few questions, but first I would love to open the floor to the board if the board has any questions that they would like to start with. Okay, well, I'll start us off. I was wondering if KU or ODP in this case has a marketing plan for low-income solar customers.
We don't have a written document that promotes that. We feel, we're being transparent with our customers by putting the programs on our website, but that's the extent of it. So
you don't have any additional marketing or outreach for the customers besides having it on the website?
If they were to come into the office to ask questions, we'd certainly answer them. That's the extent of it. So if there are other practices that the other investor-owned utilities are using, we can certainly consider those. And that has to be in relation to the scale of what we have here. We're not the same size as the other two investor-owned. But if they are, if they have practices that you would like us to consider, then we will certainly consider those.
Madam Chair, this is Will Cleveland. I apologize for interrupting, but I had trouble getting off mute when you asked if board members had questions.
No problem. Go for it, Will.
Mr. Riggs, I'm Will Cleveland. I'm an attorney with the Southern Environmental Law Center. You mentioned in your presentation that there is some ambiguity about whether 56596.2 applies to KU, but you've included something in your rate case to resolve that issue. Could you just describe a little bit more what that proposed resolution is?
The proposed resolution, we think that the ambiguity of the statute, that there is a case to be made that we shouldn't do any of it. There's a case to be made that we should. We think the better case is that we should, and we present that case. But before we can assess a charge and proceed, we need to have that ambiguity resolved. So we propose a pilot process to develop DSM programs, just like we've done in Kentucky, just like I assume is done, although I haven't looked at it, with APCO and Dominion Energy, where you would have a stakeholder process, receive the input, look at the cost effectiveness of the programs, have some more input, and filing, with a proposed implementation date and charge for it.
So the proposal is to have 596.2 be applied to KU. You would then have to meet those mandatory savings targets, and you'd have a stakeholder process to help design the DSM programs that would then help you meet those targets?
I think generally, yes. The one exception I would take is those mandatory targets. We don't think those clearly apply to us. Now, we have proposed a target to resolve that ambiguity to begin.
And is the target different than what the statute has for APCO, which is the other phase 1 utility?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But it is a target. We have put that out as a reasonable target given our size and scale to resolve that.
And are y'all, would y'all, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, we think it's a fair target. So
And are y'all proposing to recover the cost of that through your, is there a rider that you're proposing, or is it be through base rates?
we are proposing the establishment of a rider,
Okay.
not in this rate case, but if they approve the process and solve these ambiguities, then we will make a filing, say in about a year from that, after we've done the stakeholder process, proposing the DSM programs and the rider.
And does your proposal in the rate case allocate 15% of the energy efficiency programs to low-income, elderly, or disabled individuals or veterans, the way that the statute requires?
We will certainly consider that when we develop and make the proposal if our process is approved.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Will. Please speak up if anybody else from the board has any additional questions. I did want to ask some follow-up questions about just how low-income customers in ODP's territory can hear about low-income solar programs. I mean, one thought is that based on the demographics in ODP's territory, it would seem to me that there could be a large percentage or that may not have regular access to the internet. And so I do think that there might be a lack of marketing material or access for certain people in your area. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Mr. Kendrick or Riggs.
Whether they have access, I don't think we have a formal, analysis of the number of people that do have access. I would say from the public comments that are made in our filings at the State Corporation Commission, certainly seems to be, a large number that do. But
does the utility reach out to community organizations in the area, such as, the Virginia Poverty Law Center or other nonprofits or other community-based organizations that could help?
The company does reach out to nonprofits that are associated with helping low-income customers pay their utility bills. Now, I have, by recollection, had inquiries about participation in our DSM process. And we've had inquiries about people saying, can we participate? And we've certainly said, yes, we will notify you once it's approved. And you can certainly participate in the stakeholder process, and others would be welcome to do that as well. But if there are specific nonprofits that you'd like us to meet with, send us their names and the contacts, certainly reach out and speak to them.
Thank you. And I didn't see an energy share program listed as one of the programs that you offer. I wasn't sure if you had an energy share or similar charitable program that's part of ODP or.
I'm not sure what you mean when you say an energy share.
Yeah, and certain members of the board may know more about this program than I do, but I believe it's a charitable program that donors can give money to that helps support their customers.
Madam Chair.
Hannah, I can provide some context if you would like me
Sure.
to. I don't want to interrupt Mr. Riggs.
No.
We do have that program. That's the winter share program I mentioned in the presentation.
Oh, sorry. Could you say that the name of it again, just so I have it?
It's called Winter Share.
Winter share. Understood.
Yeah, that's in the presentation. We have had that program for many years.
Great.
Hannah, I was just going to mention Energy Share is a branded program that Dominion Energy started in partnership with several nonprofits in Virginia about almost 40 years ago. So I think you're thinking of something that it might be company specific, but something with a similar spirit and charitable charitable angle is also undertaken by other utilities in the state. It just has a different name.
Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, the winter share program ODP has been offered for.
Yes,
And-
this is Jonica. I'm a board member, and Appalachian Community Action in Wise County operates in Wise County, and they're the provider of Virginia's weatherization program. So that would be a great group to reach out to.
Okay, certainly.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Sam.
Uh,
Mr. Brumberg.
Mr. Riggs, thank you for being here today, and thanks to all of the ODP and KU staff members who are here today helping us with our mission. I'm Sam Brumberg with Virginia's Electric Cooperatives. I'd like to just, if we could drill down on a few areas that you've already spoken about. I think we were grateful for your presentation. We saw the various programs that you have. It seems like a lot of these programs rely on individual low-income customers to reach out to the company. And part of this board's mandate is to try to create an environment where utilities are doing more affirmative outreach. So I think we would encourage you to meet with not only local organizations, such as the local winterization agencies, the local social services agencies, and the community services boards, and then also in Virginia, organizations like the Poverty Law Center, who can really help bridge the communications gap between individual low-income customers reaching out and the utility affirmatively reaching out. I think our data supports that a lot of low-income customers need that personal connection in order to provoke action into solar and energy efficiency and even the demand side programs. Would the company be open to having a series of meetings with these various groups?
The company's open to meeting with any legitimate, representative, low income, to talk about its services. It has a very strong partnership in Kentucky with a number of low income groups that it meets with regularly. And I would certainly, I think, would vouch for our partnership in working with them. I think this part of the service territory, in our experience to date, has been one we feel like we have a good sense of the customers. We have people that have lived and spent their careers in this part of Virginia, working there, living there, that are well known within the community. And we have relied on their judgment and their interface to work with customers. We're very confident in our employees there. But we're also very willing to meet with any, established, reputable group that you would suggest to discuss how we can work with low-income customers. We've done that for years in Kentucky. Certainly willing to meet and work with the groups in Virginia.
Thank you for that. I think we would want to encourage you to continue to reach out in those areas and replicate what you've done in Kentucky here in Virginia. And certainly your comments about local knowledge and the local connection are very close to my heart. I think the co-ops and I feel the same way about the communities that we serve. Have you learned from your staff members that you depend on the Virginia side of the line? Is solar cost prohibitive in your area? Is there a supply chain problem? What are the barriers that your staff have identified in terms of low income solar and barriers to entry?
Low income customers necessarily often don't lack the funds to install, net metering.
So if there were a leasing or PPA structure that might help in terms of getting solar into the hands of low income communities, or is it, are there housing concerns as well?
I'd say broadly, I think the largest problem is the housing stock.
I mean, I think those are the two big ones are cost
And I think that our DSM program, if approved, the pilot program, that we would, consider studying is a program that would offer assistance with insulation.
Do you know what?
That's the largest, frankly, that's just from observing the territory. That's the largest, I think, challenge it has is the housing stock, and it needs more insulation.
So insulation, weatherization, that would be a priority. Yes. And then perhaps you could turn to solar in a stepwise fashion.
Well, I mean, we're certainly going to honor our obligations as, directed by the General Assembly. So,
do you know you may not know, but do you know what percentage of the housing stock is manufactured versus stick built?
I don't. But
right.
I mean, this is a low income area. This was an area that was heavily dependent upon coal, and almost all of the coal operations are gone.
No, I understand. We've got some folks in very similar circumstances, just south and east and west of your territory.
Yeah. So you understand that, I mean, when the mines have closed and they're not opening, there's the employment opportunities are very limited. And so there's an exodus of the population from this area.
Can you tell us how the company defines a low-income customer? Is that based on a certain income standard, or is that about participation in other programs?
I would have to defer to one of my colleagues on the call if they know. And if we don't, we can certainly provide that answer for you.
Kendrick, this is Tim, that's the low income program. It would be the people that participate in the programs because we do not gather that information from the customer.
All right. For your winter share program, is that fairly well funded, or have you seen those donations drop off with COVID and the pandemic?
It's the customer donations have stayed about the same, but we've increased our donations to the program.
How much did the winter share program distribute last year?
I think you can
go to page 7 of the PowerPoint presentation. We got some of the data there on the winter share distributions.
That the PowerPoint hasn't been distributed to the board yet. My apologies, but I couldn't distribute it to the board unless it's been posted publicly, and we didn't have a chance to do that prior to the meeting.
Okay, sure.
And I will certainly share the PowerPoint as part of the board meeting minutes following the meeting.
Sure.
Thanks to the ODP folks who are on this call. Mr. Riggs, special thanks to you. It's good to see you. And I'm going to let some other folks take a few turns to ask questions now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Susan Cruz. I'm a board member here. I have more of a comment than a question, and that's, we are doing extensive outreach right now about available energy efficiency programs in my organization that I work with when I'm not serving here on the board. And we have definitely found a lack of knowledge about available programs just when they're only posted on websites. And this goes for all the utility programs. But there's not only lack of knowledge, there's also skepticism and mistrust that they sound too good to be true. So I would encourage you to think about ways to reach out directly to your customers, either in putting information on the bill or just sort of making that more available. I think people do trust their electricity providers. When they learn that programs exist and that there's no cost up front, most people think it's too good to be true. And so there's a lot of mistrust and skepticism, which I think is understandable in lower income communities. And so the more our utility providers our energy providers are reaching out directly they're trusted sources of information, the more I think those programs will get utilized. So just want to encourage you to put that into your future planning.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Unless there are additional questions, I think I'm going to try to move this meeting along and move on to APCO. But thank you very much to the ODP team. We really appreciate, again, your time, and we would love to stay in contact and provide some additional input on best practices for marketing and have additional meetings. So thank you again.
Hannah, thank you. We appreciate the good questions, the dialogue. We appreciate the input. If you have specific business practices that you'd like us to consider, please send those to me and we'll take those under advisement. Again, you know, it has to kind of match the scale and the scope of our presence in Virginia and be effective with this territory. But certainly, and specifically groups that you would like us to meet with. If we haven't, now, we may well be meeting with some of these groups and I'm not aware of it. That would not surprise me at all. But if there are other groups that you think would be constructive, certainly we'll reach out. And we're willing to meet with any, you know, legitimate, reputable groups. I have any discussions with them. We do that all the time in Kentucky. And I feel very confident that our local people probably have done this, but I can't say for sure. But if you'd like to suggest that, we'll certainly do that. We're certainly willing to continue our discussions with you at some point in the future. So
Wonderful. Well, thank you again.
Okay, so we're going to excuse ourselves from the meeting.
Yes, you certainly may. You are also welcome to stay on if you would like.
We appreciate that. I think we need to take care of some things. Wish you the best, unless there's a need. If there is, then we'll certainly stay on.
No, I think that's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Could the representatives from APCO please, let me see if I can.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi.
Oh, hey.
This is Noel Codes. I am here. Ron Jefferson, External Affairs, and Will Castle, Regulatory, are also out there lurking, which I'm happy for because, you know, they're asking tough questions. I'm not sure I'm going to know all the answers. Our energy efficiency team should have been represented, but the lead, Don Nichols, who some of y'all might know, had a family emergency. So we're going to pinch hit for him and fill in as many, answer as many questions as we can. And to the extent we cannot, we will go back and get the answers for you all and then communicate them later. So hopefully that will help. We don't have a formal presentation. I just was going to talk a little bit about the two programs that we have in place that directly comply with House Bill 2789. I'll start again. For those of you who don't know me, Noel Coates. I'm an attorney. I'm attorney for AEP. I'm based in Richmond with Will and Ron. APCO's service territory is not that different from what Kendrick was describing. We are in Southwest Virginia, rural, mountainous, not economically vibrant. Our load is flat, if not declining. We have a lot of efforts in economic development area to increase the load, which of course lowers costs for everyone, but it's just the reality of the region. What Kendrick was mentioning, the loss of coal jobs is a major driver of a lot of the economic stagnation in the area. Another similarity we have and dissimilarity with most of Northern Virginia is the housing stock. We don't have we have a lot of electric heaters, a lot of baseboard heating, houses that are mobile homes that are not necessarily the most energy efficient. So that is a challenge that we have, which is why our energy efficiency measures are really targeted at housing stock. So these two programs we have that were approved by the commission last year in 2020, low income multifamily and low income single family. They don't abbreviate well. I try to lymph and lisp. They don't really sound very good, but the low income single family program is really an extension and a augmentation of a program we've had in place since 2015. That is targeted obviously low income single family homes. We have now budgeted $16.6 million to spend over the upcoming 5 years. In 2021 so far, through September, we spent $1 million. We have so far 129 households participating and have a savings of 462,000 kilowatt hours. The new program that was approved last year and implemented at the beginning of this year, the low income multifamily. And this really targets obviously the owners of units, of multifamily units, education, outreach. We have 20.5 million budgeted for that over the 5 years. And we've spent through September in 2021, 2.8 million. We've got 400 units participating, and so far we saved 1,760,000 kilowatt hours. So both of those programs are rolling. Given the challenges of interpersonal connection during the pandemic, I think we're pretty happy with the way they've been implemented and with their success so far. Both of these programs, I should have noted, were developed with a lot of input from stakeholders, and they were very popular with the stakeholder process. Because they comply, and the commission determined that they comply with the number one of the House Bill 2789. Once we've got a really solid foundation of those programs, which we're building pretty quickly, we're going to turn to working with a stakeholder group to address the second part, and you start the outreach of to those participants of the opportunities for solar, and develop that with consultation with you all, with the stakeholder group, and with the State Corporation Commission. Addressing some of the other issues that I saw floating around, we're not part of the shared solar bill. Our concerns with that going forward are a little bit along the lines of what I mentioned before. With a declining load, it's hard to be actively supportive of programs that take away more load, because all that does is shift cost onto our customers, more costs onto our customers, and the majority of our, depending on how you define low income, and again, we don't take the information about our customers' income, so we don't really know, but just looking at the demographics, a lot of our population, it does qualify for low income assistance. So that's something that we have to keep in mind as we develop programs and move forward. And community solar, I know Will Cleveland's out there. We have a longstanding joke about our lack of community solar, but really that reflects a lack of solar. We've had a lot of problems getting projects online. You all might have seen last week that it was in the news that we have a 20 megawatt actually operating now, which was great. We're very excited about that, and we have a lot of projects in the pipeline. Some of them have been in the pipeline, including one that we had initially targeted for community solar for about 3 years, 4 years maybe. It's been a long time, but we have some that are, we obviously can't announce, but hopefully, knocking on wood, will be part of our Clean Economy Act filing, which we'll be making by the end of the year, hopefully later this month. That'll just give us a lot more flexibility with the type of programs that we can develop and offer our customers in the service territory. We are finding a lot of problems with the supply chain. Of course, we all know it. I don't think we need to tread any ground about that, but that's definitely impacting a lot of the pricing problems that we're having in the negotiations. But the other problem is that the developers really have it's a supply and demand issue. I mean, Dominion and APCO have very aggressive renewable mandates, and there are similar mandates across the country, including corporations who want renewable energy. There's just a lot of competition in the marketplace, so it's making for a challenging process, I think, moving forward as we get these projects together. So I think I have been talking around. So if you want to ask any questions, or if Ron or Will want to pop in and fill in any blanks that I have missed.
Yeah, I'll give the opportunity to Ron and Will to fill in any blanks, and then I will open it to questions and comments from the board.
It is Will Castle. No blanks for me. Ron, sound like you might have a blank. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Noel, I think really stated it quite well, and I don't have anything else to add.
I have a few questions, but I will open it to the board first. Any questions or comments from members of the board?
Yeah, this is Susan Cruz. You mentioned your significant mobile home housing stock that you have in your territory. And I just wanted to note that, and you mentioned how poorly those type of homes do for energy use. I mean, we've seen in surveying mobile home communities in our area energy bills of $500 a month or sometimes higher. So between $300 and like $800 a month in some mobile homes. And so that is, I'm wondering if you've seen similar trends, if you are able to develop a plan to sort of address those really exorbitant energy costs, and if your programs that you mentioned that are available for energy efficiency, if the information about those programs is available in Spanish as well as English, because we know that a lot of immigrants end up in mobile home situations and may not have access to the information about available programs if they're not in Spanish.
You know, the Spanish question, I don't know the answer to that, but I can certainly look into that. I will note that there's a lot of misrepresentation in the media, especially at times about bills, about total bills. I think people need to keep in mind that, I live in Richmond, I've got gas, I heat with gas as well as electricity, but mostly with gas. And that's not the case in Southwest Virginia. There's very few people have access to gas to heat. So when you look at those skyrocketing power bills, I mean, $500 is, I'm not saying that it's not cheap, it's very, very expensive. But they're not paying that's a heating bill in addition to the power bill. So I think the reality that most folks don't have access to gas to heat, which actually might not be a bad thing these days with gas prices skyrocketing, but that is something to keep in mind going forward. And I am drawing a blank. We proposed an energy efficiency filing a couple years ago, and energy incentives for Energy Star qualified mobile homes. And I think we got denied, unless, I don't, Will, do you remember?
Yeah, I was just looking that up. I think that's the case, yes.
Yeah, it was
there's a manufactured home. Essentially, you would pay the incentive to the manufacturers to make them more efficient at the factory, and give them the incentive to make those and make them available. Because I guess the problem is, as I understand it, that because they won't sell, so they don't actually make it out onto or they think they won't sell, so they don't make it out onto the lots to be purchased. And I would just add to your comment, $500 for a mobile home is a very large bill. It's a very small structure, so on a per square foot basis, it's quite a bit, and it's really just the issues you guys are all familiar with. It's just poor insulation and strip heat, which is very inefficient. So yeah, we're aware of that.
Yeah, I think Dominion had a partnership with a local energy efficiency provider here in our community to do a pilot that specifically worked on making mobile homes in a certain community that had a lot of high bills more efficient, and so provided some funding up front. And the local energy efficiency program, which was the local energy alliance program here in the Charlottesville area, did a pilot where they retrofitted and worked on a dozen trailers and found not just like high energy bills, but water leaking problems. All sorts of problems were addressed in that process. So it might be interesting for you to look into doing something similar in your region.
I think that the low income single family program is designed at exactly addressing your points too, because they are the single family. I mean, they definitely qualify for to participate in our program, which is pretty aggressively funded. And I think so. I think the commission, I'm going to have to double check to see if the commission ended up supporting the program, but split between the customer the retailer for the energy efficiency mobile homes, but I'm not sure if we went ahead and implemented it. So I will double check on that as well. For some reason, I think we did, and I will check on the Spanish language.
And you're saying the Spanish language requirement would be helpful on the website, I assume, or just as flyers or
all materials.
All materials. Okay.
Yeah, just making sure it's just something we don't often think about, but when we're creating materials to get them translated into Spanish and make them available in Spanish is just really important, I think, for ensuring equal access to these programs for all residents.
Yep, that makes perfect sense to me.
And
So just to comment, this is Jenica, again, a board member. The Virginia Weatherization Program has a protocol for weatherizing manufactured housing that's very effective. You insulate the belly board and the roof system. And so any of those structures that can apply through that program, I dare say I'd guarantee you could lower the energy bill from $500 through the measures of the weatherization program. In fact, we have a training center. We have a mobile home out back, and we train weatherization workers throughout Virginia on how to weatherize those homes and increase their energy efficiency. So that's one measure. Identify those high bills, people with those, get them on a program that, again, is a grant program that can spend up to $7,000. And then the other comment I would make about the AEP program, it's a wonderful program. Conflict of interest, we use that program and administer it for other agencies to get that money out, but it's a great supplement to the weatherization program. But it gives us the ability to do really major work. And in fact, on mobile or manufactured housing, we do a lot of that work, because you're right. It's a housing of, I don't know if it's the housing of choice, but it's very prevalent in rural areas in Southwest Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, it's in our, thank you for that. Thank you for the kind words. I mean, it's very important to us that our customers, I mean, we all want customers that can pay their bills. We all want customers that can afford electricity. We don't, we want happy customers. So it's really in our best interest to target that population, that housing stock. It's in everyone's best interest. So we have a really, I wish Don was on, but we have a really vibrant and experienced group that does help and target that population. So thank you.
I do have a few follow-up questions about APCO's marketing plan. Do you have a marketing plan for low-income solar?
No, I think that would be part of what when we start developing the program. I guess, like I said, now that these two programs are up and rolling, as we move towards the second phase, I think we will keep that in mind and and develop. I mean, I think the comments with Kendrick are appropriate. How do our customers receive their information? Are they online? We're trying to expand broadband and a whole nother program in Southwest Virginia, which is obviously a problem. Do they get their bills by mail? So I think we need to do sort of an overview of how do our customers receive information, and then target, once we have the program developed, target it based on that way. And that's a little bit beyond my world, but certainly something that we'll work on moving forward. And any input from other utilities or you all would be appreciated, of course.
Yeah, it would be helpful to understand kind of what the current marketing looks like. Is it all online? I know that APCO is involved in the community, but are you reaching out to customers where they are, at community meetings? Kind of what does all of that look like? That would be really helpful to understand, and I'd love to hear more about that. I don't know if you're prepared if you have answers to that right now.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't think that we do have answers to that right now, but that is certainly something we can get back to this board with in terms of a marketing plan for the solar program.
It's certainly easier now that we're having meetings in person. You know, with our transmission lines, we do a lot of public outreach, and you know, it's much. I think they had the first in-person public outreach a couple weeks ago, and everyone was really just, even though not everyone's happy about a transmission line being built, I think our people were very happy to be able to have that personal interaction with you, with our customers. So that makes life a little bit easier.
Certainly. So back to the solar component of HB 2789. So I remember, I feel like I'm a little bit out of the loop on kind of where everything is now. When the legislation was initially passed, there were stakeholder meetings, and I remember there was a discussion about there was a 3-year term for the program, and does that apply to both components or just one and then the other? Does this ring any bells?
Ish.
Ish.
It does, yeah. No, because I think we addressed that a little bit in the application for the part one. Yeah, I would have to go back and think about that a little bit.
Because yeah, I would be interested to know, you know, the timing of this, right? Like, so at what point are you going to move into the solar component, and then is that solar component then a 3-year program, or how does that relate, or is that all an open question?
I mean, that's an interesting question. I mean, it looks like if the first, well, you know, because we have, I think the way we presented it, thinking back when we got approval for the first 2 programs, that they would be 5-year programs, but the first 3 years will comply with the HB 2789. And it looks like that the idea was to have both components run for 3 years. So if we were able to implement, you know, get something developed next year and implemented, it would still be within the 5-year time frame of the first 2 programs. Because if they were running for, you know, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, as they had been budgeted, then if we had the solar program, those 3 years would be the latter 3 years of the 5-year program. I don't think they have
Yeah,
to run the same time. I mean, we definitely have these, you know, like I said, we have a 5-year budget for them for both programs. So we're within that time frame that just started
I think,
earlier this year.
yeah, I think the concern though is making sure that the people that you get on the weatherization then can be transitioned over to solar, and not too much time is lost there, because I think a lot of people that know a lot about marketing, not me as an attorney, but what I've heard is that it's hard to come back to the same people and kind of get them interested again. It's much easier to have like a continuous line with somebody where you say, hey, we're going to do this, and now we're going to do solar. Then, okay, we're going to do this, and then in 2 years, we're going to come back and do solar. So as you're working out those details, I think the board would be very interested in providing feedback and discussing how best to market it and how best to structure those interactions.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know anything about marketing either. So
There's a lot of smart people on the board. And then I also wanted to get back to the community solar program and just kind of understand. I mean, has APCO filed any type of program?
no, we don't have any solar. So that's initially when we designed the program, thinking that we would have one project. We had one project that we had a PPA with, and that project has it's kind of a running joke. I mean, it's not a joke. It's not a joke for anyone involved, because it's just it has hit everything possible that a solar project could hit. It's still going. Last time I heard, it's supposed to be online next year at some point, but that was the project that we were going to initially use. And then we issued an RFP after the Grid Transformation Security Act. A couple projects that we were very excited about fell through. We have one project now that's 5 megawatts that have been waiting for all year to sign and to file, and that's run into, you know, local ordinances. I think what a lot of localities are realizing that, you know, the tax base that a solar facility provides is not the same as a coal facility, for example. So they are, what I've been hearing is that they have been perhaps more demanding on what they're asking from the developers as far as financial burdens. So that's another obstacle that solar is facing. It's hard for us to have a community solar project without, excuse me, a community solar program without a solar project. So we are aware that the obligation is out there. I'm glad I didn't have a time on it because we would be in violation of it. But yeah, it's not because we don't want to. It's because we are very focused on getting solar projects developed, both PPAs and ownership, and we have a combination. Crossing fingers that will be coming forward, and hopefully with the commission, if the commission approves them, then we'll be able to have a lot more flexibility about what we can offer, including community solar project. I have a folder, I have a pile on my desk that is community solar, and it has a lot of dust on it, but it's still there. Yeah, it's been challenging. I mean, challenging for all of us. It's, our company as a whole has, AEP as a whole has a very, we're committed to renewable energy. It's just the practical reality I think we all are aware of is that it's not just as easy as plopping down a solar facility. There are a lot, or a wind facility. So, but we're definitely working on it. So we're a little bit over time.
Yeah. Any additional comments from the board? Okay. Well, again, I really want to thank you for your time. We appreciate you coming in today, for the virtual meeting. But we would love to keep this conversation and dialogue ongoing. We would love to provide feedback. We would love to help in creating a marketing or ways to, do outreach for low-income solar. So I hope we can do this again, and make this an annual check-in and have an active flow of information between the board and APCO.
Sure, and I'll get back to you with some with whether or not we have that program for the energy efficiency mobile homes and the Spanish language question. And then I definitely know who we can get involved with for the communications and outreach people, that not the lawyers or regulatory people for sure, but we'll work on that moving forward.
Thank you. Yeah, it'd be great to understand kind of what it looks like now. So kind of what could be built up, to work for solar.
Definitely. Definitely.
So with that, it looks like, again, thank you for coming. You're welcome to stay. You're also welcome to leave. I know that everybody has really busy schedules. Looking at the agenda, we have a break from 11 to 11:10 before Dominion. If everybody is okay, I will just extend that from now until 11:15, and we'll come back at 11:15 and talk to Dominion.
Thank you for having us, everyone. It was good seeing you.
Thank you.
Hannah, I want to let you know I'm here, but I'm going to have my camera off for the next 5 minutes while I finish my breakfast.
No problem. Thank you, Susan. Looks like everybody's back, more or less. So we're going to continue the consultation this morning. Casey Bliley is also saying she's here. That's great. Thank you, Casey. We're going to continue the consultation today with Dominion next. And so
And I think your cat's
I'm muted. Thank you. That's a good thing. So we're going to continue the consultation today with Dominion. If the Dominion representatives could please introduce themselves.
Good morning. Hey, this is Nate Frost. Can y'all see and hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hey, good morning. And also with me is Michael Hubbard. Michael, are you out there?
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
There you go. And we've got, you didn't mean to interrupt, but we do have some slides I can project using the share button if that's okay, or do you have any other kind of?
No, I think that'd be fine. Aaron, can you give him access to do that?
Yes, you should be good now.
Appreciate it.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Nate.
Yeah. Here we go. So check again. Can everybody see the slides? Thumbs up. Okay.
Yeah.
Good morning. Okay. Well, thanks again. I'm Nate Frost. I'm Director of New Technology and Energy Conservation. And for reference, Michael Hubbard's with me. He's the manager of our energy conservation team. Really appreciate y'all having us and providing the opportunity to have a consultation with the collective wisdom of the Clean Energy Advisory Board. We put together a couple slides really just to help provide some background and maybe serve as inspiration for a conversation, touching on two components of the House Bill 2789, and then also one just regarding the timeline associated with the shared solar program. But obviously myself and Michael are happy to answer any questions anybody might have, and certainly want to ensure that we have a good dialogue, and we very much welcome feedback along the way, or even at the end at any time. Just please raise your hand and let us know, and happy to address any questions along the way. So the first part, touching on House Bill 2780, and just real quick before we get into this, just know that we have over the course of the last few years developed a very robust portfolio of energy efficiency measures. We're up to, I think, almost well into the 30s, and we'll have a few more coming this year. So got a really proud of the breadth of the different measures that we have, but just want to make sure we can answer questions on those. We've got other low-income programs, but for today, just wanted to touch on, at a minimum, just these two components of House Bill 2789. So again, with HB 2789, reminder, there were really two components. There was one that was focused on the energy efficiency or energy conservation side, and then the other was the kind of the follow-on for the solar. And so this one just is a reminder on the energy efficiency side. We call it component one, just for our purposes, we like to compartmentalize so we can kind of follow it a little easier. But again, this was a 3-year program, and for us, it was up to $25 million. And again, it had two real main thrusts. One was for residential heating and cooling, and then importantly, health and safety. So that's really an important area where we were able to expand the measures. And that program is this particular program is one we filed back in late, I think it was December of 2019, went through the regulatory process, and throughout 2020, we launched the first part of this year. So it is actively available. And we're working with our weatherization provider network to implement these measures actively right now. We've seen success to around 1,800 premises so far, or customers. So proud of that. It was kind of a slow start, but in collaboration again with the Weatherization Provider Network, we're seeing a lot of success here towards the end of the year. So very much looking forward to building upon that as we move forward through the rest of this year, but certainly over the next 2.5, 3 years, however we find that cycle. The eligibility for us, and I know this was a question earlier, was 80% of a local area median income or 60% of the state median income. And really whichever one is greater. So, through this, we wanted to make sure that we cast as wide a net as possible in the different regions and to account for differences in income, et cetera. And again, available to residential, single family, multifamily, and mobile homes. So again, we want to make sure that we cover all geographic areas and kind of all housing types. The measures, as you can see, we put them up here there's a lot. There's 14 measures that we have listed here. And it really allows for much more meaningful heating and cooling upgrades or replacements. Plus, as I mentioned, those health and safety measures as well. So as we do a lot of, kind of sealing up the homes that we work with, we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to ensure that we leave them in a safe condition. So in addition to the heating and cooling, this allows for, much more retrofitting of some of those more safety issues. So very excited about this. And I'll pause here. Does anybody have any questions about this particular program? And we can get into the marketing and other things, but just to the extent folks have a question, feel free to just speak up. Okay. So pivoting to kind of component 2, and again, you have these 2 different components. We filed this one in December of 2020, and we just got approval here recently in September. And again, this is another 3-year period. And so Hannah, to your question, we saw, the first one as a separate 3 years, and then this will have kind of its own 3-year period. So while there is overlap, they do have differences there.
Okay, that's helpful. So I'll let you go on, but sorry, just to remind me. So one launched in, you said Q1 of 2021, and this is going to launch 1 year later.
In Q1 2022.
Okay.
So yeah, just following up a year later. And that will give us the opportunity and benefit of kind of building a pipeline along the way for those that would be able to participate in this. So just know that as we do that, we mentioned 1,800. We have many more that we're hopeful that we can do. Just know that we're also doing site assessments, to understand, making sure that we're taking good, diligent notes regarding interest in solar, conditions of the premise and property, and orientation and obstructions and things like that. So making good notes so that we can be more actionable as we move forward with this. And again, this one's another 3-year program, $25 million specific to solar. And again, this is for installation of solar panels at no cost to the customer. These will be installed on the premise, behind the meter, and net meter. So again, they get it at no cost, and that's upfront and for the life of the asset. So really wanted to ensure that as we went through this, we didn't create a burden in any way, and make sure that they were able to provide it in a way that they had confidence to know that it, in some way it wouldn't, unduly create a problem down the road. And again, generally the same eligibility, income qualifying, elderly, disabled individuals who are either in component 1, but also those who have already participated in an existing HVAC related program. So we do have in our minds the opportunity to kind of expand the aperture a little bit beyond just those in component 1 to see, previously addressed customers who had received HVAC related upgrades.
And Nate, can I ask a quick question on that? Is there a timing? Yeah. Is there a timing component of that? Like how long ago could they have participated in an existing program to qualify?
That's a good question. I think really the threshold is whether or not they had an HVAC related measure. So we can go back as, I would think far. I mean, it's only a few years really that we've had the opportunity to have those HVAC related measures. So that's really the key point there. And certainly as we go forward, we're going to have a portfolio for component 1 that should open the door for really anybody, hopefully, to have the opportunity to, at a minimum, get those opportunities for the energy efficiency, energy conservation, and then the opportunity for solar. So just know that as we look historically, we know we have a broad base, but we also want to make sure that we're just being as diligent as possible as we go forward. We're just capturing everybody we can. And so the approach, I mean, kind of an update on where we are with this. Again, we just recently got approval of, it was really just, I think, 40 days ago or so. And so we're working through right now with our implementation vendor to kind of really just firm it up, think through all the questions and make sure that we have all of our diligence done. But the intent is to work with the state weatherization network and our implementation vendor, who is Nexent, now called Resource Innovations, which will probably take me years to get over, to identify the jobs and perform that quality assurance field work. So again, we're going to work through the state weatherization network for this program. I feel like that's really just, as we thought through the right way to go about making this available to customers was, again, to do it in partnership and collaboration with kind of that trusted resource that they've already been working with and are accustomed to. Again, we've heard, I think previously in one of the other presentations, is skepticism and trust is something to address. And we feel like this approach hopefully will help kind of navigate those issues. And so we're going to work with the weatherization provider network. And then through that, we're going to be utilizing essentially a network of qualified solar installers. And that's what we're actively working on right now. And one of the things we very much would like to get the board's perspective on is how to make sure that we develop essentially a robust network of solar installers that could be doing the field level work. And so we're pleased to announce that we're going to be issuing an RFP kind of / RFQ. And again, looking for qualified solar installers and want to better understand the pricing and their capabilities, et cetera. So we're going to be issuing that at the end of this month, or by the end of this month. Again, we're working on that now diligently. And then kind of have a 60-day open window period in which to get feedback from those solar installers and help, develop that network with the opportunity to launch it in essentially spring of 2022. So one of the things you can see kind of the call out here, we want to make sure that we're casting as wide a net as possible for interested solar installers. And so we put a email address here, ecinfo@dominionenergy.com, or you can contact me directly or Michael. I think everybody here probably has my email address or can get a hold of me somehow. But just know that we want to get the message out and develop as robust and diverse portfolio of solar installers as possible. But certainly would like to understand from the board if you see any other opportunities for getting the message out. Definitely all ears, and just want to make sure there's awareness on the network, but also the program as well. So anyway, I'll pause there for questions, comments.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Brumberg. Where's yours?
If I may ask a question or two. Nate, this is Sam Brumberg. A few questions on this slide, if I could. Are you actively liaising with CESA and their new executive director to make sure that this gets out to the solar community?
We have. We've asked them for feedback, but I think that's a really good recommendation and suggestion, Sam. So it's a good reminder. And certainly before we put this out, we'll want to reach back to them. That's an important point, Sam. Thank you.
I mean, I'm no expert on CESA and the internal workings, but I know they've had a Maryland focus and kind of a regional focus for several years. So it might not be a bad idea to get their new ED like really plugged in here to Virginia. A second question, if I might, Nate. To what extent do you foresee the solar supply chain impacting your schedule for this program?
It's a good question, Sam, and one that, I don't know if we have absolute certainty on. That's certainly something we want to better understand through the RFP, RFQ process, right? Is to understand what do they see? What supply chain turbulence do they envision? How does that impact availability and pricing and our ability to get the work done? So
I think that's going to be an important point to keep in mind for all types of projects,
Yeah.
you know, wherever they're being done. When you combine the headwinds of supply chain,
Yeah.
local government, you know, planning approvals, permitting, and just the PJM queue, I mean, we could be looking at a serious decade-long slog here. And I say that, you know, that might be on the optimistic end of things. So I think it's really important as the company continues its development of this program and as it puts its foot in the pool to actually get the RFP and the RFQ processes going. I think an important and incisive question of every respondent to the process is, what can you do now in the immediate term, and what's going to take longer, and kind of what's in the planning pipeline? It's great to have a planning pipeline. I think we all want you to have one, but there's a big difference in terms of what the VCEA requires. And I think we need to know what can be done now, and what is kind of, you know, on track to be done later.
That's helpful. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Nate, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Nick, oh, sorry. I don't mean to...
Do I have time for a couple questions?
Yes, certainly, Taylor.
Awesome. Nate and Dominion team, appreciate y'all coming here and talking about this particular program. Question about the program itself and getting customers signed up. Who will actually absorb the tax credit here?
So the approach that we took, Taylor, was to essentially provide it at no cost. So we wanted to, as we developed this, take a more agnostic policy approach and focus more from a customer perspective about what's, I would say, the single touch, easiest for them to understand kind of approach. So our focus has been working kind of through that lens first.
Sure.
And that's really just kind of how we arrived at this arrangement.
Nice. So when thinking about rolling this out and getting the message out, I was unaware of this. Granted, I'm not in the resi field, so to speak. I think this is a tremendous opportunity for a lot of folks. Will there be any direct marketing through existing programs that you know of that have, from a conservation energy efficiency perspective, or what are the ideas, or maybe using installers that come through the RFP process to also push the program, or how you guys thought about getting the message out?
It's a good question, and certainly one that it's still very much under development. But I think a strength of the program will be, utilizing the weatherization network and the resources we have with Nexent and then ourselves, kind of at just a baseline level, to ensure that anytime you have a conversation with a customer who's qualifying and might be able to participate, whether it's in component 1, very much making them aware of component 2, and just making them aware. And we recognize that it might take a little bit of time to get them to a place of comfort with that. But Taylor, what I think where we're getting to is, where appropriate, anytime we have that conversation, we need to make sure that there's awareness of this opportunity. And so we'll work, again, hand in glove with Nexent and the weatherization provider network to ensure they have the resources and information necessary to have like an informed conversation.
Cool. Yeah. That makes sense. A couple just comments on the RFP that might improve the rollout. I think Sam properly identified Chesa. They'll be able to assist in providing a list of potentially qualified bidders. I think just maximizing the bid list and getting the right information from those bidders. One being really understanding what each installer's bandwidth from like an installed capacity per quarter actually is. You're going to see people wanting to bite off more than they can chew if they see a lot of work flowing through this program. And we want to keep safety and quality high, and you're going to be forced to use a lot of installers, some of your best installers are geographically focused in the state. And no one party is going to be able to do 25 million in resi, right? That's just not in the state right now. So I think, there will be some admin associated with multiple parties to deliver this capacity, but I think the opportunity is great. And then another piece is just, articulating to the bidders exactly what you're looking for and what that rollout might look like. No one signed up yet, so no one really knows how much demand there's going to be. So there's going to be a little interplay there. But I think that could be valuable for the installers to understand, what that roadmap looks like. That's all. Appreciate y'all's time.
No, thank you very much. We'll make sure you get a copy of the RFP, Taylor. And to that end, I mean, Sam touched on, our observations that we've seen. Anything regarding kind of the supply chain that might be worth mentioning?
It's the hot topic right now. Nothing, we are seeing module pricing actually beginning to decline a little bit from the recent spike. Hopefully that's a good sign. But it's a roller coaster. I don't have any crystal ball, unfortunately.
Got it. I guess a reason to be flexible. Yeah, appreciate the comments.
Yeah, hi. This is Susan Cruz, and I just had a couple of questions on component one, really, because I think you're right. Sort of getting people through component one is a great way to then have people to follow up with for component two. But I wanted to, you said you're going to lean on the relationships with the weatherization providers, which I think is great because these folks are the ones out in the community doing the work. But I feel, from my perspective, we may need to look at further resourcing those organizations to be able to do the type of marketing and outreach to get people into the door. It seems like our energy efficiency programs generally in the state are underutilized. And I think there's a need to increase marketing and outreach, getting people on the ground to get people utilizing those programs so those weatherization providers can do their best work. I mentioned earlier that I think we need to make sure in our marketing we have everything available in English and Spanish. And, I want to suggest that to you as well, so that all customers have equal access to understanding why these programs exist. And I think that why component is really important for low-income customers who may be skeptical. So, understanding that these energy efficiency programs exist because it makes our state healthier, it moves us toward a clean energy future, it makes our grid work better, all of those things, understanding the why, because otherwise customers don't believe, they feel like it's a scam. Well, so then I'm going to have to pay you later, or you're going to have the deed to my house. We hear a lot of these concerns being reflected back to us. And because it doesn't make sense to them why someone would just give them money to help them. So there needs to be a why component, why this is available, why it's important to us as well as it's important to you that you participate in this program. So just wanted to put that out there and encourage you to think about further resourcing the marketing and outreach piece of getting these energy efficiency measures happening at higher rates of participation.
Yeah, very much appreciate that. And certainly something that's top of mind for not just these particular programs, but our entire portfolio. And so you can expect from us as we move forward and bring forward a long-term plan that we intend to file in our next filing in December. We very much want to make sure that we're inclusive, including in that our broader, more comprehensive awareness, education, and outreach plan. We recognize in order for us to meet our goals for the Commonwealth and for the customers, we have to drive awareness and understanding of these, and very much appreciate the thoughts on the understanding why. I think that's something we could probably expand on and certainly ensure that folks have the resources and materials they need to have the conversation that's effective.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you. Okay. And lastly, just moving on a little bit, we've got, just wanted to touch on the timeline around the shared solar program. Hannah, that's one of the things you had asked us to speak to. And this is kind of just a trip down memory lane and kind of where we're going. For the shared solar program legislation, obviously this goes back to 2020, which seems like a lifetime ago at this point. But anyway, it became effective in July. The SEC provided their order adopting regulations in December of last year. Did want to note that the subscriber organization registration is open and available, and that began in October. So to the extent that folks want to, I think we've got information on our website regarding, what you need to do in order to apply. And I know that we're working on publishing essentially a summary of capacity and reserve capacity within the shared solar kind of program, if you will. There will be a hearing at the SEC to look at the couple of different things. I think it's to evaluate the credit in the minimum bill. That'll occur on November 18th. And then obviously we'll wait patiently to understand kind of the final order from them. I expect that sometime in 2022. But there isn't a definitive rule by date there. And then lastly, the program launch will occur in July 2023. And a reminder there that, one of the biggest things that we needed to have in place here at Dominion was to have a refresh customer information platform. And that's just a new billing system to give us the flexibility to accommodate this. So we expect that to go in service sometime, I think, in the first half of 2023. Get that stabilized and then launch the program. So those are kind of the components that we have there. And certainly I think as we think about how this can apply to income qualifying customers, obviously they will not be subject to a minimum bill. But I think this, as you look at the timeline, we've got between now and 2023 to really refine what that messaging looks like, and obviously subject to some of the other things that need to be ironed out along the way. But that gives us a really good, robust timeline to ensure that we, can provide information that they need to make informed decisions and kind of what roles different groups will play. So just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, Nate, to that point, I don't know if you can speak to this, but I would love to, and maybe you already said what all you can say at this point, but I would love to understand if Dominion has any thoughts on what role they are going to play in promoting shared solar to customers. And I'm saying that because, as Susan said earlier in this meeting, customers really trust their utility.
Yep.
And people have an inherent trust of, if Dominion says that this subscriber organization is like a valid subscriber organization and I will continue to get energy, my lights will continue to turn on if I sign up with them, that would be very valuable. So I was just curious if Dominion has thought about what role it intends to play in that marketing and outreach.
That's a good point, and one that, obviously this is a very kind of new idea and concept. I think importantly, what we want to do is understand from the customers what's effective, what messages, to your point, as you just brought up, while we can be a trusted resource, it's what questions do we need to answer for them. So at a minimum, I would think we'll continue to work on awareness and just be a trusted resource for information, what forms that takes, whether that's web-based or any other content or channels that we think are effective, I think would be areas, that we can help with that. But important, I think what we'd like to do is listen from others and understand what can we do. Where would y'all like to see us, in this, the whole gamut here, what do you need us to do? And again, Hannah, we do have time to figure it out. That's good. And
right.
So,
it's terrific.
Yeah, so we do have time, and I know there's a low-income working group. Not sure if this is something that they anticipate addressing at some point, but I think that would be a worthy conversation, right, to help us inform instead of just guessing where, what we think we can be effective at. Help us inform what we do.
I completely agree. I think it would be very helpful to have that shared solar working group address these issues, in the future. Like you said, there is some time. especially to figure out how to address the low income customers. And then also probably having some meetings with the subscriber organizations and having that open dialogue with those folks as well. And I know I have participated in the low income shared solar stakeholder group as a representative of the Clean Energy Advisory Board. So we do have some interactions there. And of course, the board is happy to weigh in directly as well. Does anybody else have any questions on the shared solar program? So hearing none, Nate, I do have a few additional questions. I don't know if other members of the board do as well, but Catherine had sent a few questions that I sent on to the whole board as well. I don't know if those were the questions that you were asked kind of in connection with the energy efficiency solar program, or if they were kind of more general questions that we should address again now.
To the extent that we didn't touch on them, I think it'd be helpful to make sure that we do. If we just go back and do kind of an inventory, I think we had sent some over to you. If you don't have them handy,
No, I have them. I can read them out. So there's 4 questions. And we have touched on some of them kind of throughout the morning and again with you. The first one was, what are the best ways to inform customers about the availability of the program? And by program, I'm not sure if this is really a specific program or just kind of in general low-income solar programs.
I'd say low-income programs.
Low-income.
Yeah. And if there's, you know, and again, we are working through the weatherization network, but Susan, to your point, any other areas that are gaps maybe that you've observed either from us or other utilities or best practices would very much welcome those.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've pointed out before is that there are organizations that work directly with people who are having trouble paying bills. You know, generally speaking, you know, a lot of people don't think that of their electricity bill as something that they can manage. They think it is what it is. And so organizations like legal service providers throughout the state, the Virginia legal service organization in Virginia. So there are legal aid programs all around the state in every area of the state that work directly with customers, and making sure that listening to those organizations and partnering with them to get information out about ways to lower bills would be a great opportunity, another marketing opportunity, either through Dominion directly or through the weatherization providers, building those partnerships and making materials available to them. I would love to see that happening more. Having worked at a legal aid program for 10 years and seeing customers come in with, or clients come in with stacks of bills and trying to figure out how they're going to manage everything, having those legal services providers be able to inform people about that program would be a really great thing. And so I think a partnership could really be established there to get information out more generally about these available weatherization programs. You know, I know 5 years ago, my mother got a new furnace and had no idea that she could have gone through this program and done it. So, which frustrates me endlessly to this day. So it's just an example that I use as an energy aware child. My parent could have participated in the program but didn't know about it, and wasn't informed by the service providers that showed up at her door to assess her furnace needs. And I often wonder if we could if customers would be willing to provide a log of the age of their equipment and could get notified by their energy provider that it might be time for a replacement, like that would, and that there's a program available to help them do it, rather than it breaking right before Thanksgiving dinner and they just do whatever is available. So.
Again, very helpful. Appreciate it. We do work with social service and other nonprofits, but I think stepping back and making sure that we don't have any gaps with anybody else who might have interactions or might be a trusted resource would be probably a good exercise for us. It's good homework. Thank you.
The second point would be how can and should the company differentiate communication methods and messages to low-income customers about the programs? I can start with that one. I think we talked about it a little bit throughout the morning, but I think having a diverse way of reaching customers, not just online, but again, through trusted intermediaries, that's very important, through mailers, you could do emails, but just to make sure that there's a variety of different communication methods. And again, for the low income customers, not relying solely on websites, but having that person-to-person dialogue where there's real trust is really helpful. Does anybody else have anything to add on that point? And then the second 2 points are about solar installation. What steps should the company take to ensure robust responses to the solar installer RFQ? And on what criteria should the company evaluate responses from solar installers? Now, Nate, I have a few thoughts on this, but they're not for retail solar providers. They were more, coming from Apex, larger scale solar providers. I don't know if that would be helpful at this point, though.
Please.
Okay. So I asked my team these questions, and as you know, there's a lot of delays with PJM right now. And so it could be beneficial to run RFPs shortly after relevant PJM study results are released. And then kind of be prepared to quickly advance the process to a final selection at that point, just because if those are misaligned, that can destroy a few projects. Yeah. Then the other big issue is upgrade costs for the system. Some way to address those upgrade costs, whether it's taking responsibility for the full upgrade costs or some portion of it, or figuring out a different way to address those. But that would be helpful in getting more responses to RFPs. And then also evaluating projects from a perspective of interconnection status and cost and permitting status. So I think that's come up a lot as well.
Just taking notes. Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any feedback on those questions from Dominion?
Okay. Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Brumberg.
Nate, I know this has been the subject of a lot of discussion kind of in the realm of the General Assembly, but, and a lot of people put their eyebrows up when we start to talk about geographic preferences. And I'm not saying the company should have a geographic preference, although it's clear to me that the company can, even if legislation cannot, the company can have a preference for Virginia-based companies and suppliers if it wishes. I think the more pressing issue, as I've spoken about today, and as the chair just mentioned, I think we need to find suppliers who are actually, and developers and installers who are capable of doing the projects, who don't bite off more than they can chew, and who actually have access to the materials and equipment that are needed. And those might indeed be folks with a Virginia connection. So I propose that for the company's consideration as well.
I would agree. Certainly, opportunities for economic development and workforce development should be a major consideration. So that's a good point, Sam. Thank you.
I mean, take the good work that's already been done in the offshore wind space, and maybe maybe we can transmute some of that into the solar space as well.
Totally agree.
Madam Chair, I have other unrelated questions. I'll hold them till we get to the next stopping point.
Thanks. We may already be there, unless Nate, there's anything else you want to discuss?
No, just just want to say thank you. This has all been very helpful for us. This can be an ongoing conversation. Again, you saw the information, or excuse me, the email address regarding solar installers, but to the extent that anybody has any ideas about ways that we can improve our processes or outreach or anything else, please contact either me directly or Michael Hubbard, or you can go through Catherine, who's on the board as well. Just know that we've got, it's all of the above, approach to meet our energy efficiency goals and to deliver on this solar component. So just know that we're working hard, but we very much value and appreciate everybody's feedback on this. It will take everybody. So just know that this doesn't have to be a one and done. Contact me directly, or you can. We've got a DSM stakeholder process that's well established, and happy to hear from others in that if need be.
Thank you. I think we still do have a few additional questions for you and your team.
Okay.
And Sam, I have a few, but it sounded like you have some as well. Do you want to?
I yield to the chair in all respects.
So I'll just start. But I guess, this is a question I had asked for the other two IOUs as well. But do you have a specific marketing plan for low income customers, either solar or otherwise?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's necessarily a marketing plan, but we have ongoing and constant engagement with the communities that would serve to benefit. We do that directly ourselves, either from the company through our energy share, which Catherine touched on, is the one that's shareholder funded, and through the weatherization providers and through our implementation vendor, Nexen. So it's long established. I'm sure we can spend more to ensure that we have more resources available. And those are things that we'd like to touch on in our next filing, is kind of a more robust and kind of more baseline awareness and outreach plan.
And sorry, in your next filing, is that DSM filing or?
Yes, yeah, in our DSM filing. So, historically, it's not an area that we had lean into, but now we're going to, develop a robust kind of outreach plan. And
are you going to
be a big part of that?
Are you going to be reaching out to stakeholders and developing that outreach plan?
Yes, it will be informed through the DSM stakeholder process.
Okay.
Yep.
And how does the company currently market the net energy metering to customers?
That's we make resources available online on our website. We want to serve to be a trusted resource for our customers. So we have what I think are robust and always welcome for feedback on ways that we can improve. And we're looking at other utilities for kind of best practices, et cetera. I will say that, looking at the applications that we've seen, it seems as though it's been very effectively performed by the solar developers themselves. So I think the role that we need to do is just have very relevant information for them to make informed choices, right? So, regardless of income status, I think there's always a question of what am I being sold? So we've been looking at what role could and should we play to ensure that there are the proper consumer protections in place and make sure that customers are informed before they make these decisions, because they're expensive, impactful, and could, if not done well, could lead to an adverse outcome. So I think that's the role of the utility, and that's one that we're looking to continue to enhance.
Mm-hmm. Are there, besides this specific, annual consultation, if you will, are there other opportunities for the Clean Energy Advisory Board to engage with Dominion in assisting with developing the low-income solar marketing plan?
Absolutely. Again, we're going to be rolling that out over the next, I'd say, 4 to 6 months. So to the extent that the board, has thoughts on, what they'd like to see, please let us know. Again, we'll leverage kind of an existing framework that's been generally pretty successful think I've heard from Susan and others about the opportunity to provide just more generic, when I say generic, more baseline marketing of the programs. So we'll certainly look to do that. But to the extent that other board members have relevant feedback, I'm happy to do another pull up with the board itself, or in maybe a subcommittee, or whatever the right approach might be.
Thank you. Take that. Sam, I know you've been eagerly waiting. I'll let you ask your questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nate, when was the utility, putting aside any litigation related meetings or communication, when was the utility's last meeting with the Poverty Law Center?
Directly, I mean, you're talking about myself.
Well, not necessarily you.
Yeah, it's hard to say, Sam. We've got, different levels of engagement with them by different parties within Dominion. And I would say at a minimum, we always make sure that we're going to be in the DSM stakeholder meetings, which are, I think, at a minimum quarterly. We've got subcommittee meetings throughout the year. I mean, it's probably approaching a dozen meetings over the course of time, and I expect they'll be participating in that. But, I'd say it's probably regular and ongoing as far as consultations with them.
Certainly want to encourage that. I think in addition to your own network, which obviously is tailored to the customers you serve and the communities you serve, and is probably more powerful than anything we could come up with here, I think the Poverty Law Center can provide you with a statewide view, and I think they'd be happy to have, I would hope, they would be happy to have a meeting kind of isolated from any of their participation in rate cases and other administrative litigation. Does the company have any standards for low-income customers versus moderate-income customers, or do you depend on the participation in public assistance programs to make those determinations?
Yeah, it's a good question, Sam. We touched on it regarding the kind of the eligibility threshold. And, it's my understanding that there's a process to go through and kind of perform a, attestation and validation of that. This is one I'll ask Michael Hubbard, my colleague, to the extent that anything he can expand on there would be helpful.
No, great question, Sam. We utilize the state agency standards. In fact, working with stakeholders, we added the 80% of the local area median income because of certain areas of the state had a more challenges with that and the cost of living. But the 60% of the state median income comes from the DHCD. And we also, pursuant to, a lot of people don't know this, but pursuant to the code years ago, I believe in the 2012 timeframe, for age even has a higher threshold of 120%. And that was just a standard that was building off of the DHCD standard. So we've got, we follow pretty much the state agency standards, and then a slightly different threshold for even the elderly.
Is the company keeping this data itself, or is it just taking in data from external sources?
We utilize to target, and of course, Nate has already hit on, we work with Resource Innovations, our implementation vendor, and the very experienced state provider network to understand areas of need. But we utilize U.S. Census data to target some of the larger areas of need. And then, does this help answer your question, or?
Yeah, I mean, then just, this is not a gotcha question. It's really not. But if I looked up, if I looked up my profile in the company's system, and I put in my name and address, is there going to be any tag there about income or any other kind of status?
No, there's not. There's a attestation form that the customer utilizes. And you talk about trusted source. The providers are that. They walk the customer through number of people living in a home and the income level in that home. And then there's an attestation that's signed regarding that. One of the things that we want to be sensitive to is the storage of sensitive income type of information in our systems, which we don't do, but we do require an attestation signature.
Thank you. I wanted to explore another area, if we might. How is the Energy Share program doing, and is it well funded, and how much was distributed last year?
That's a great question. Nate, did you want to tackle, or you want me to jump in there?
No, Michael, I think your perspective would be helpful.
Sure. Yeah, it's well funded. For those that aren't familiar, there's a provision in the law that has a $13 million a year look, and that is three components. It's really energy assistance, bill assistance, weatherization, and also an education component. And so each year we're spending towards that 13 million and doing very well. As y'all know, there's a lot of need. And again, we're utilizing the same network that does our regulated side programs to do the weatherization on the Energy Share. The bill assistance for decades has had intake through the social service agencies throughout the state. That has been a very successful method. Energy Share allows us a little more flexibility. We can utilize the income guidelines that we use for the regulated programs and that the state uses for their programs. But we also have, through the social service agencies, a process that if somebody has been on hard times and they qualify, they may qualify for Energy Share. If they get bill assistance through the company and qualify for that, then they also qualify for the Energy Share weatherization. So that's an additional need that we meet with the unregulated program.
So Energy Share, that entire 13 million is going into Energy Share?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And Energy Share is doing both weatherization and direct bill assistance.
That's correct.
All right. And that program is fuel neutral, and you'll help with any energy bill, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, but again, the qualifications through the social service agency, and they get referred then to additional services for weatherization.
If I am a low income customer and I am fully qualified, eligible, what have you, for Energy Share, can I use Energy Share towards my solar payments?
Help me understand that question, Sam.
If I'm a low income, again, this hypothetical may be a bit strained, but forgive me and bear with me. If I'm a low income customer and I have solar on my roof and I've financed that solar with a PPA, and I'm qualified for Energy Share, and we know the program's fuel neutral, can I have Energy Share funding go towards paying my solar PPA?
It's an intriguing question, Sam. One that I don't think we've come across to this point.
I mean, and that's okay. You don't have to have an answer. I'm just.
I don't think we have an answer at this point. It's one that I think we'd have to explore and understand at that point, Sam.
For your consideration.
Yep, it's good thought. Good to plan.
Thank you, Nate and Michael, and Madam Chair, thank you for allowing me to ask these questions.
Yeah. Thanks, Sam.
No problem. Any other questions or comments from the board for Dominion? Okay. Hearing none. Well, I just want to say thank you very much to Nate and Michael. Really appreciate your time, your preparation for this, your time here at the meeting. Again, looking forward to having this be an annual thing and to have continued dialogue between the board and Dominion. I think there's a lot of good work and a lot of good things we can do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again.
So we're a little ahead of time now. I think we can take a moment and open this up to public comment. Aaron, can you help me do that?
Yes, I can. If there are any folks who want to just submit a question in the chat, I'll be happy to read that out. If not, I will kind of moderate if people kind of come off mute and ask the questions through their mic as well. I see Ruth, if you've got your hand raised, you can go ahead and ask a question.
Hey, thanks, Aaron. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ruth Amundsen, Norfolk Solar. I run a fund that does solar on low-income business and residences. And just one quick comment. All of this sounds great, but a question for Nate. One thing about going through the weatherization providers is if it happens that you're in an area of the state where the weatherization program has been less successful, then if you're going to work through the weatherization program for these new programs, you may be operating at a disadvantage. So might look at beefing up the way you're marketing or advertising to areas if there has not been as much weatherization that's been successful in certain areas.
Thanks for the feedback, Ruth. We'll certainly make sure that we think through that aspect of it. One thing to ensure is that nobody will go unserved through this. To the extent that some areas may be underrepresented from a provider network perspective, we will ensure that working with our implementation provider that everybody gets the opportunity to participate in our service territory. And appreciate that thought there. We'll make sure that we circle back on that.
Great, thanks. I will probably take you up on your invitation to email you some separate comments about it, but one just off the bat is our solar program. We worked with the installer and required that they hire a certain number of their employees and train them from the low-income neighborhoods that we were putting the solar into. And so wanted to give you that as an idea for the workforce piece, is to make part of your RFP or part of your contract the idea of hiring and training from within those neighborhoods. It's been really successful for us and led to the first minority solar installers in Hampton Roads.
Again, thanks. It's very good feedback, Ruth.
Thanks, Aaron. And thanks, Nate.
I'm not seeing anything else at this time. It's gonna give people like 1 minute more. All right, I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Aaron. I think we will, just so everybody knows, we will be posting the slides that were presented today to the website, so everybody will have access to those. So thank you. So that concludes the section on the investor-owned utility consultation. Thank you to the board members for asking good questions and coming prepared, and thank you for the public comments. We really appreciate them. We do have a few minutes left in the scheduled meeting, so I do want to just remind people about the Friday meeting. So that is it's a virtual meeting on Friday of the board from 11 to noon. And Bettina Bergu is going to be talking about Virginia Green Bank Market Assessment, green banks in Virginia. So if you can come, that would be great. We need to have quorum to have that meeting. So please let me know if you will be unable to join. And then the other point is just stakeholder outreach. Thank you, everybody who has signed up to do some stakeholder outreach. And thank you very much for filling out the forms. I think hopefully we'll get some good information to give back to CESA so we can limit kind of the pilot program to a few communities where it could be successful. So just a friendly reminder to please do that if you have not. And thank you to those that have. Anything else that people would like to discuss at this time? We have a full 45 minutes, but we don't need to use it all. But if there's anything that people do want to discuss or bring up, we do, now would be a good time.
Anna,
Yeah.
Casey Biley here. I did have a question regarding providing the feedback from the stakeholder outreach. I was just tracking that in a Word document. May I forward that to you to forward to CESA accordingly?
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Any form. Thank you. And I'm not sure if we have quorum still. 5, 7. Who is SS? I guess we do have quorum. Okay.
SS is not a member of the board.
Okay.
Don't think.
Any other updates? Does anybody want to provide any additional updates at this time? I'm kind of looking at you, Sam. Do you have anything to update?
I do not believe so. I will note for the board's information a meeting of the Regulatory and Policy Committee next Tuesday, the 9th. That meeting will be in person at the DMM, the Department of Energy offices in Charlottesville. And we will begin at noon.
Sam, I don't think I have an invite to that meeting. Would you mind sending
I am happy to forward it along to anyone who's interested. I would note that we will begin at noon. However, lunch will not be provided, although chairs to sit in will be provided.
You're a gracious and generous host.
And if anyone needs to carpool from my west end of Richmond office, that is also a possibility. Just shoot me an email. Madam Chair, that is my only announcement, I'm afraid.
Okay. Well, I don't think there's any reason to keep everybody on. So you get 40 minutes of your day back, which is just delightful. And thank you everybody for joining. And I'll see you again on Friday.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you all. Have a good week.
Thank you.